Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Upset Podcast. We're here again for another week of lively conversation. And of course, I'm not alone. I have my fellow upsetters. How are you guys doing?
Hey, doing good.
Doing great.
Good to be
see you
here.
all.
Yes, great to have the crew back again. And today we have one of those, I feel like we always have those topics that could really go in several directions. But as many of you may be aware, May is Mental Health Awareness Month. And that's definitely a topic that we felt we needed to tackle. But of course, we do have to let you know everything that we share in this podcast are our personal opinions and our point of view. Always seek professional advice and opinions for anything regarding your personal mental health.
Right, not what Tally says.
Or DP.
Or
Now, of course, we understand that mental health awareness came about because of the stigma associated with mental illness and those who suffered from, mental challenges. But not just that, for individuals recognizing that we all have mental health that we need to take care of. It's not just for those who have diagnosed illnesses or disorders. But of course, we also recognize as Christians and being in the church that there's some stigma attached to those who seek therapy or say they have been diagnosed with a certain disorder. There are a lot of Christians who believe that we use these types of things as excuses for sin, that we don't want to call these things exactly what they are. And so we're going to open up the discussion right there, guys. Do we believe that mental illness, mental disorders, is it real, or is it just something we make up to make ourselves more comfortable in our sinful activities?
Oh, I think it's very, very real. And of course, it varies on different levels. But I believe that every person is dysfunctionally functional. And that we all need to seek mental health counseling and therapy on a regular basis, even if nothing is wrong with you, but for maintenance sake, because of the trauma and the stress and all the things that we go through in life, especially as a Black person, I believe we all need counselors and therapists.
Good point.
I agree. Now, do we need to distinguish the difference between a mental illness and a mental disorder?
I think so, because I think one may precede the other.
Okay.
From some of the research I've done, and I'm not a professional in this area, but I have done some research, for this topic, and a person can have a disorder that can become an illness, depending on a lot of mitigating circumstances. But I think at some point there is a distinguished line, because some people will come back from a mental disorder, they'll come back and be quote unquote normal. Others it's a deeper dive and it becomes an ongoing illness for them. I know personally people like that started off, okay, some traumatic thing happened in their lives and they just started to decline.
Right.
And I'm thinking, as I think back on situations like that, I'm thinking if it were caught early as a disorder, that it could have been turned around faster. But in some cases, it just got deeper and deeper. And so I think there is a difference.
Charles,
but I'm not a professional.
sorry.
I can't say. Yeah, go ahead.
Charles, I have this question. It just came to my mind. So, does it mean from the studies that once you have a mental illness, there's no recovery? Is that a permanent thing? Are we saying only disorders are curable, but not the mental illness?
No, I think mental illnesses are curable. I think there are people that have come out of very deep mental illnesses and have recovered, and it's a case by case. I just don't think it's a one-way street. Once you've been diagnosed, you're mentally ill, and that's it for the rest of your life. I don't believe that.
Well, let's look at
Gotcha.
let's also look at it this way. mental illness or mental disorder, I would use them in tandem with each other and not make one of them easier to say. We use euphemisms just so that we could feel good about some of the things that's out there. But let's take, for example, anxiety. Stress and anxiety is still some type of mental illness that
Mhm.
right.
Mhm.
And everybody goes through stress. Everybody goes through some type of anxiety. And I always, one who suffer with anxiety, I was always looking for a way to get rid of anxiety. You can't get rid of anxiety. It's there. It's always there. The key to mental illness or the mental disorders is to manage it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think
Mhm.
that's one of the problems that we have, man. And yeah, let's make this super spiritual. That's why I can't wait for Jesus to come, because he's gonna handle all the mental disorders, and they'll all be gone. But while we're here right now, there's a plethora of them that go stress, anxiety, depression, grief that cause depression, all of this. But let me add this in, because I think this will help us with this. It's the time frame that you go through that disorder that determines
Mhm.
the how it affects your mood, how it affects your thinking, how it affects your behavior. It's the time frame that determines how, I'm going to say it this way, how bad the disorder might be. So you're going to grieve, and you're going to grieve for the rest of your life. Those of you who have lost a parent, you're going to grieve for the rest of your life. The question is, how are you managing that grief as you go along? And I think that's where we need to think about the management of it.
So what do we have to do to
And
get to the
I'm
point
sorry.
where we break the stigma of all the resources available to help people manage their trauma, manage what they're going through? Like, it's okay to take your meds. It's okay to love Jesus. It's okay to see a therapist. Why do we draw the line and say, okay, that's unacceptable, but you can go see a counselor, but you can't take medication? Like, why are we like that?
That's a good
Hmm.
point.
Well, look,
Yeah.
Mark, we were talking about this, Pastor, in the green room, where you have started to preach or to talk to your members concerning mental health. It's almost.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
if I may say, and I wanted to say this before GP was taking us to another place. I think that it is so dangerous for us as a people. I mean, we have to get to the point that we not, stigmatize, certain things to think if you have mental illness, that's crazy. No one wants to think I'm not crazy, as soon as you talk about that. But there are people actually hurting in the congregation. And if I can be, may I be honest? Can I be transparent today, people? You know me, I try to be
Please.
transparent, right? So my personality, I'm kind of like a happy person, right? And so a lot of times people with depression like want to hang with me. And
Mm.
I kind of brings me down, right? So I kind of run. You see what I'm saying? I mean, I'm not trying to be mean, but I like to stay happy because I got my own issues, right? And
Mhm.
so let me tell you what Jesus did to me. God is amazing. So I went to this ministers conference, right? And when I went to the conference, it was all on mental illness. So everywhere I was going is teaching depression. And so I was trying to duck it, right? And not go to any of those classes. So Jesus sent me to the perfect one. I did not know what I was getting into. And when I was there, I mean, God just opened my eyes and opened my heart, gave me
Mm.
more compassion for people with mental illness because they can't help it. Depression, anxiety, bipolarism, manic depressive disorder, personality disorder, schizophrenia, all these things. And it showed that 1 out of 4 people have mental illness, and
Mm.
many are undiagnosed because we don't want to go, we don't want to see anybody, we don't want to be deemed crazy, we don't want to see
Mhm.
anybody. So I started preaching this in my church because I know many people in my church. I don't want to
Well,
label anybody, but I know some behaviors that were very questionable. I mean, I could start pointing out people, right? And so I started preaching, and I tell you, I had people coming to me saying, "Hey, Pastor, let's have a support group." And of course, I kept it
mm.
confidential, but there were starting to be so many talking to me behind closed doors. I mean, I suspected, some, but they were opening up, and so many felt suicidal. And they was like, Pastor, I
Mhm.
battle. They say, I think suicide every day. And I'm going, oh my God.
Right.
And so I just brought them sermons for Jesus, because Jesus had to run into mental illness, right? He was the healer. He had
Mm.
to have the same issues.
Hmm.
And so these
Right.
people were taken to Jesus. That's why we need to go to the doctor. You need to release. Our minds can't handle this kind of stress. And so when I started preaching, I mean, I had people were so thankful, and they wanted to start a support group, so that they could just come together and share, because people who may feel that, they're healthy minded, they don't know the pain that those who have mental illness or mental disorder, what they go through. I mean, I can't imagine thinking about suicide every day, because they're tired of being in the
Mhm.
shell. They're tired of having, those thoughts on their minds, and they feel like they pray. Where is Jesus? Why is Jesus not healing me? And so they come to us as pastors. I want to lead them to Jesus. So now I have to teach them how to trust God when he's silent, how to
Yeah.
trust God when it doesn't look like, he's moving when we want him to. So I have to explain it's the same as when someone has cancer, or when someone has, some other prolonged disorder. We're still trusting God. So Pat, that's been my experience. And
Yeah.
it's
And I like
so
that.
well needed.
I like
Mhm.
that. Let me go on another piece with this. So knowing about it. Let's go surface, okay? Let's not go PhD, let's not go masters, none of that, right? Let's just knowing about it does something to you also, not just for the
Mm-hmm.
person that you can recognize what's going on, but you can also look at some of the changes that's happening in your life, because now we're talking about self-care, right? Let's talk about self-care.
Yeah.
Sometimes we lose pleasure in activities. We have fluctuations with weight loss, weight gain. Yes, men too. We do same thing, right?
Really? Wouldn't know about it.
Some of us, some of us, trouble getting to sleep. No, think about this: trouble getting to sleep, or feeling
Yeah.
sleepy during the day. Sometimes feeling worthless, or guilty feeling, and not even know why you're feeling guilty towards something. What I want us to be, and what GP was saying earlier, what I like about this is that once you are aware of it, it does something to you too. You're not only looking at
Mm-hmm.
how another person could be better, or oh, they crazy. You really need to turn around and say, oh, I'm crazy. And you know
Mhm.
what I mean by that?
That's right.
Yeah. And the
What's
potential.
going on with me? And that's the problem what we have in church. Let's bring it back to church. You're gonna holler the most amens when we preaching, when people are saying, oh, they talking about that person over there. But we
That's right.
don't holler loud when the preacher
Hmm.
or someone is talking about us.
Well,
No
Mhm.
transparency here.
Mhm.
Anxiety was at me because of spirituality. Okay. So let's just put it out there in there. I'm not saying that everything is because of that. There are chemical imbalances that we have discussed, that we
Mm-hmm.
talked about before.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of times that we have these type of depressive moods and etc. is because we're leaning on what we think we know, when there should be a higher being that we should be dealing with. I know it sounds surface, but many of us suffer because of that reason, lack
Well,
of faith.
And I
I have.
also, oh, go ahead, Charles.
No, go ahead. I'll ask my question after.
No, I was just saying, I think the reason why we have this awareness month is because there are a lot of people who suffer in silence.
Right.
They feel like they're the
Mm-hmm.
only
Mm-hmm.
ones who hear voices, or they don't understand the feelings, but they're afraid to share what they're thinking with others because they might be labeled as crazy, or, what's wrong with you.
Mm-hmm.
But when we start talking about this and normalizing these things, people feel like, okay, it's not just me. It's okay for me to get help. And I think even as a church, like you were saying, Marlena, people come and they want spiritual guidance, but sometimes the pastor has to say, I'll pray for you, but you need to go, see a
Right.
professional to
Mm-hmm.
get medicated, or, come up with some behavioral things to address your issue. That's not to put a limit on what God can do, but there are still resources and things in place to help those who are suffering.
oh yes, God and a good referral.
That's
Hallelujah.
right.
Well, yeah, and that kind of leads to my question. If you know, or if a person knows that they have a mental illness or disorder that they're struggling with, and we say, yes, you should talk to someone who is a therapist. Should that be, or can that be a team effort between the therapist and the pastor? Or is it
I
just go to the
would say
therapist?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I've done team ministry with therapists. I've actually done sessions with therapists, and so sometimes, yeah.
As long as you have explicit permission,
And
Yeah.
then it could be done. Because what helps you to get through what you're getting through is confidentiality. That is what allows you
Yeah.
to understand that I can go ahead and pour out whatever it is I need to pour out, so that a therapist can be able to say, point you into the direction that you need to be pointed in. Let me just say this rather quickly. The therapist is not the expert. In that room, the client is the expert. All right. There's nothing that a therapist is going to be able to do to heal that person unless that a healthy to make that person healthy, unless the client themselves choose for that to happen. So the expert in the room is for the person who says something is wrong with me. That's where the expert starts. So even if you have a member of a church that says, hey, I want to do that with my pastor, I want my pastor to be there, there has to be explicit permission for that to happen, because a pastor could take your business out there and it's cool, but a therapist cannot do that. Whatever happens in that room stays in that room, and that's what gives you the ability to grow from someone who you know cannot take it out of that room. Now that's not taking the pastor's job away. It just makes it, I want people to understand that the pastor can be the conduit to getting the information, and that's where the power comes in. The power comes in the referral.
What do you say to the person that says, well, can't I just pray about this? Can't God just correct this for me? Why do I have to go
I gotta
to a
go.
therapist? People will bring people will bring up 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 7. For God hath not given us the spirit of fear,
Sure.
but of power and love and a sound mind.
Yeah, he didn't give us that spirit of fear, but sometimes we go out and buy it.
Mercy.
But it should be. I mean, throughout the scriptures, you will run into people who are clearly mentally ill, wrestling with disorders. I mean, David wrestled with mood swings that were. Moses obviously had some issues. Some people thought that Paul every once in a while displayed a level of
Narcissism.
Nebuchadnezzar.
I mean, and as pastors, let's be honest with ourselves. We all wrestle with stuff. I mean, taking this job is a clear suggestion that you probably need some help.
Definitely.
But it should be noted that pastors need to be keenly aware of the fact that pastoral counseling is not therapy.
Say that.
It's and that most pastors, when they try to provide therapy, do an extraordinarily poor job. And that we need to get our members the help that they need. And then once we do that, we should follow them
and can cause more damage.
And get help ourselves. I mean,
Tally, we could cause more damage.
We can cause more damage. I've seen that. I've seen it where, where one pastor told a person, you can tell me, I'm not going to,
right.
I'm going to, and the person told them, and the pastor said, you should be ashamed of yourself.
Wow.
And,
Oh my goodness.
So it's, but there are other things as well that we, as ministers, I remember when in 1995, when I separated from the conference for what I thought would be forever, for the first time in my life, I was clinically depressed. That's right. And I found out I was doing a radio program, interviewing a psychiatrist, and during about the third break, he says, I think you have depression. And I said, I don't get depression. I cause depression.
Mercy.
And he sent me a book. And I read the book and realized that I was severely clinically depressed, and I should have been. I'd earned it. And I remember how shocked I was and embarrassed, and what I went through having to go see a counselor. And when she told me that maybe we should put you on medication, how I resisted it, and I didn't want to do that because I'm a man of God,
Mm.
and what I went through, and even now, I mean, recently I went through some things where I had high anxiety and found out that it was connected to a gallbladder illness of all things.
Wow, look at
Wow.
that.
Wow.
But
Nick,
see,
Mm.
that's the importance of telling stories like that,
Yeah.
because other people go through stressful things and maybe clinically depressed, don't know it or have that shame.
Yeah.
But like you said, you just normalized it for several people, even pastors right now, by sharing that. And I know, Patrick, you've been very open about anxiety and sharing with people steps. And some people didn't even realize they had anxiety until you started talking about some of the symptoms associated with it. And I think it's just so important to talk, for more people to talk about it, because even going back to what you were saying, Charles, about the praying thing, we have, when people have cancer or they have these other illnesses, we pray, but we also encourage them to go to the doctor and to take their medication. And we need to treat mental illness that way as well. So it's with prayer, medication, but also talking, providing more platforms for people to share what they're going through, so other people don't feel like I have to bear. I'm a spiritual giant, so I can't let people know that this is my struggle. Because once you addressed it, Tally, what I'm hearing from you is better quality of life. Once you got over this thing, you didn't have to suffer from it. You were able to manage it and kind of move forward or know what to do.
There's two words that you just used. I'm sorry, Chuck, and I let you go. There's two things that Latasha, you just said that's important. One is when you pray, anytime you encounter Jesus, he also gave the command to go. There's always a command after that to go. So pick up your bed and walk, right? There's always something that follows that. You're healed, go and sin no more. So there's always a behavior that follows that. So Nick, like you, my muscles were contracting, right? I was getting these headaches and I couldn't sleep at night and I was irritable and I couldn't eat. There was one time I was 116 pounds, right? Because of it, and couldn't understand what it was.
Wow.
But then when I went to the therapist said to me, your problem is the church. Okay, y'all.
Wow.
Mercy. We didn't hear you, Pat. We didn't hear you, Pat.
The problem was the church. So in other words, I was
Have
treating my
mercy.
family bad, but I was saying yes to the church people all the time, and afraid of the conference.
Come on, man.
Afraid of everything. So my life revolved around being a yes person while I was suffering. Man, the reason why I say that, Nick, is because the change in that, Latasha, the change in that is that when you manage it, it really doesn't go away.
Right.
You have to manage it to the point of saying, make sure you don't get back there again. And I think that is the reason why, Marlena, it's important for us to be on the pulpit 52 Sabbaths. And you know what I mean by 52 Sabbaths? Guard the pulpit, because the people look at that pulpit as serious information that's coming from there. So when a pastor gets up, Pastor Defoe, and matter of fact, we have a whole lot of pastors that's in mental health in Allegheny East Conference, right? I think we have like 6, 7 of them.
You mean as clients or as?
Well, no, clients, we have 100.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Clients, we got 100 and
All
something.
of us are clients.
Right? I'm the player president, right? So when you look at that, and I look at Paul, who has said that, chief of sinners though I be, right? So the thing about that is that we have to be able to do our part to be able to say, if you're sick, this is where you need to go. And the mental part of that is, I'm going to say this and get in trouble for this. A lot of us as pastors are narcissistic, right? We have that.
Have mercy.
And people are going to change now and say, oh, you mean type A mentality? No, I don't mean type A mentality. We get to the point in our lives where we end up lacking empathy. The disciples got that way when hanging out with Jesus. They lack empathy, right? They want the excessive attention and admiration, right? They feel that they're more important, where your members can't even see you as on their level. So therefore, they can't even see God on that level. So what we really need to do is to be able to say, when I came out, yes, I said it. I know that's our last thing. But when I came out, my family was upset because the Caribbean The Black
Very
Caribbean
private. Yeah.
stigma is that you don't say that you have a mental problem.
No, you have it all together.
Yep, you have it all together, or at least act like that in the street, whatever it is, right? And my mother was embarrassed with me for doing it, till the point that I kept doing it over and over again and talking about it over and over again, till they said, you know what, you crazy because your daddy crazy, and we just ended up just going through it that way. So we have to be careful of that stigma, especially we as Blacks. Especially as Blacks, Caribbean, Spanish, is brown. We're the same way. We always need to act like we have it together. That's the move that we need to change on.
We also, I think it's careful to not label too much, and that is, the mental illness often is defined by what's written in a book called what is that book called? The Diagnostic Statistical Manual put out by the American Psychiatric Society. And the reason that you have, for example, oppositional defiance disorder, a child is, well, look, that's what children do. That's not a disease. It's not, but here's what I found out, and psychiatrists told me, you have to have a name for something or you can't bill for it. So they give names to these things, and that's why we've got so many different names for stuff now. It just means sometimes that people are doing what they do. And so some people, they get a label, and all of a sudden they run around the church slapping people, cussing folks out, saying, well, I got slap happiness. When in reality, they just flipped it, and they just got a problem, and they need to be prayed over. And don't be so quick to label yourself, but there are times when you need help, and when you need it, you should get it.
Absolutely. And I think back.
I was just going to ask a question.
I think. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Let me just. I'm
Go
dying
ahead,
to get
Charles.
this question out. All right. What do you say to the person who finds out that their therapist has a therapist?
I applaud.
That's right. The therapist.
Okay.
They better have one.
They better have one.
I hope every pastor is in touch with somebody.
Every pastor, as far as I understand, Allegheny East has Aetna, and every worker should at least go in for 6 phases. Even if you don't feel like anything is wrong, you should still go in, because the amount of things that the pastor is put on the pastor's shoulder, he cannot handle that and his family at the same time, or other things that is absolutely impossible. Can you imagine what it's like, Marlena and GP, all of Nick, if we could walk into a therapist and say, I hate that elder who keeps on beep, beep, and blah, blah, blah.
Go on and say it, Pat. Just go on and say it.
I can't say it.
We just need to say beep.
All the way through. Can you imagine being able to do that? It's like going into a smash room. You know what I mean? One of those rooms that you could just walk in and just knock everything. The therapists don't care. The therapist is saying, you know what? Good job. Not only are they getting paid for it, but they're listening to you, so that at the end of it, you could come to a conclusion on your own. That's why I said you are the expert. Every pastor, Chuck, should have one. But here's another thing. I go in sometimes for emergencies. Come on, y'all. Think about it. Sometimes you just open up psychiatry and you just need to go in and talk to somebody right now, and you need to
on a regular.
Yes. And just know that person is there that you can crap on, right? Because the more you crap on them is the more you have the release to know what's actually happening with you. And that's on the therapy side of it. So Chuck, yeah, every pastor should have a therapist, and every pastor should have a therapist. And I hate to say this, it's going to sound bad. That's not Adventist.
Yeah.
Wow. And go ahead.
No, finish up, Molly. Go ahead.
What I wanted to say, Chuck, is that the mind is so fragile. When we think we're so strong and we're beyond, any type of illness, we are not. And so, as Pat was saying, culturally, right? Some cultures, you don't tell people you're crazy. You don't tell people your business. You you know, and we hold this stuff inside, and it damages us. And if we could really be honest, hey, is that a reason why there's so much divorce? Is there a reason why, you know, children are leaving? You know, is it our stuff that's internal that we don't want to speak to anybody? We just want to hold it, and this distorting us, you know, distorting our personalities and our outlook and our behaviors, how we handle things, when we really have to release that thing and get it out so that we can begin to heal. Because when we don't speak it, we become broken. And we think that brokenness doesn't affect us. And others around can see it's something wrong with them. You know, it's something wrong with her. It's something wrong with him. You know, but we're saying, no, I'm good, but we're broken. And that's why I think it's important that all of us, I remember when we were at the last ministers conference, that's why we need to go. The last ministers conference, it was focused on us taking care of ourselves, right?
Self-care.
And one of the presenters said, right, self-care. One of the presenters says, we needed self-care on a regular basis. We need to talk to someone, not just when you trouble, not when you know you're seeing the side effects, you know, of being broken down, you know, because it will affect your health. Not then, but we need to do it on a regular for prevention is what we're talking about. And before my next colleague starts to speak, I want to say to you who are on the line, you're broken. Listen to me. I can't even see you, but many of us are broken, especially coming out of this COVID year. Divorce rate is high. Abuse is high. Listen to me, guys. I am a victim of domestic violence. They're saying that it's higher now. And so we try to cover that thing, and we try to, you know, make sure nobody knows our business, and we're broken. I'm telling you, me, Marlena, I was at a point that I wanted to die when I was going through my domestic violence issues. And so the mind is fragile. And it took a lot to get me back. When I give my testimony, people say, you, I can never imagine. Listen, the enemy's not playing out there. The same way he's causing cancer, he's causing the pressures on the mind, he's causing depression and anxiety and all of these, because our issues come from traumas in life, right? And I don't, you think you're good and you don't have to go through this, and I keep it to myself, and Jesus can just heal me. Jesus touched the man 2 times when he was healing his eyes, right? At first, the man was still seeing trees. So Jesus had to go touch him again, right? Hey, you need some help.
You know,
and so
Marlena,
I mean, I hope that we're taking this seriously.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
we're talking, but
Absolutely.
I want us to know, because I have a family member, and I see it, and I talk to them, and I say, you need help, and they're like, no, and I see them breaking. And so that's what I want us to know. This is serious. You know, we need to talk to somebody, and shame on us pastors if they come to us and we put people's business out, or we don't lead them to the right place, you know. Right. And so we, you know, it's very important. We're on the front lines as pastors, and those who are on you know, this broadcast, we're on the front lines, and it's very important for us to get people to help. And all this shooting stuff, the minds are snapping. And don't ever think it won't be you. Don't ever think it.
Yes.
Because the enemy, that's what I want to say.
can I add this piece? We also got to be careful of those of us who mask it well. Sometimes we'll see people in a jovial mood. Marlena, you're like that. I'm like that. We're Tally's like that. We're always happy about something. Sometimes we do that to mask what we're feeling. And the reason why I'm saying that is that at the other person to be able to say, okay, that person is masking something. Can I pray with you? Can we talk about what's going on? Once we normalize it and people will be able to say, yes, I'm going through something. You don't have to carry that burden. Yes, we give it to Jesus, but there's also a professional that can handle that. Marlena, you're exactly right about that. There is somebody out there that's going through something, that's saying to themselves, I don't know what to do from here. And that's one of the reasons why I love what we have in North American Division and Allegheny East, that you can actually go to a page and look for a provider. You can actually go to our website, look for a provider. There's no excuse to it, and be able to at least begin the healing process. That's where it comes
Mm-hmm.
in the healing process. Here it is, everybody. It's right here. Visit aec.org / relationship. And it ended right there. No, I want you to know that it's clear. Please do not suffer in silence. Don't let it happen. Don't let it
Yes,
happen.
yes.
Please don't.
Yes, that's right. Thank you, everyone. I mean, this has been a great conversation. I mean, that's the whole point of mental health awareness, is for us to have these conversations, show support, not just to individuals who are suffering right now, just to everybody. Encourage them to take care of your mental health and find ways to do that. Be intentional about that, just as you're intentional about your physical health. Your mental health is equally important. And please take advantage. I'm gonna put that website again. Please take advantage of the resources that we have on our conference website. This is where you can not just find a list of counselors, but even other websites and other resources where you can go to get help discreetly. You know, we know some of you still, you don't want everybody to know what's going on. Discreet help that's out there for you. And we just want to keep this dialogue going. And I thank everyone for taking part in this conversation. I think it's been healthy for our mental health, and we hope it's been for you. So encourage your friend, family member, yourself to take mental health as seriously as possible. Thanks, everyone. It's been a great dialogue. We want, of course, to thank you for listening and watching. If you have something you want to share, we always encourage you to email us or comment. We love hearing from you and hearing your thoughts on various topics. And don't forget to, we're on all these podcast platforms. Go ahead and download the podcast and subscribe and all that those wonderful things to keep up with what we're dealing with this month. Thanks again, guys.
Natasha,
yeah.
Close, although all the pointing for those that are listening only on audio. What in the world is everybody pointing to?
Oh, you're right. The first, visit AAC.org. We're pointing to visit AAC.org/relationship men, MIN, short for ministries. That's the site that you can go to for the website for resources. And then the email address is upset@aecsda.com. Thank you, Charles, for keeping our listening audience in mind. We that's why we have you here. All right, guys. Be good to yourselves and to your minds.
Thanks so much. Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.